Okay, we're back. We were in the middle of a juicy Jinn story that Ustad was telling us about when he was praying Maghrib, and some Jinn started screaming or something in the back, and then the sound equipment just went off. Anyway, so he had a Jinn in the mosque, and we were talking about Rukia.
And you've attended some sessions.
Yeah, I've attended few actually.
Guys, yeah?
Huh?
So does that mean that someone here has got a Jinn?
You don't even play on that, man. Does Unscripted.
Hey, what? That's very good, bro, man. That's quite nice.
That's the best clap I've done all day. I was practicing.
So make sure you don't get clapped yourself later.
Shall we start properly?
Yeah.
La ilaha illallah.
La
ilaha illallah. Sheikh, do you like that tajweed?
Of course.
It's a
Feeling
Urdu
it.
tajweed though. I'm not used to it.
Alhamdulillah.
The la in the normal Quranic tajweed you say la. Right? It's what's it called again?
Tarqiq.
Tarqiq. It's muraqqaq.
Yeah.
But in Urdu tajweed,
It's mufakham.
it's mufakham. You have to say la.
La.
And there are other rules as
really,
well.
like from the chest, proper deep. La. It's not just normal.
Closing the eyes is
Exactly. That's just, standard, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
But for beginners, you don't have to close the eyes, so you know where you're going and stuff.
They're not ready for it. They're not
Especially if
ready
you're
for it.
driving.
Okay. Yeah.
But there are other rules as well for Urdu tajweed. Like we have this qalqala of nida.
Okay.
So if Umar's right here, I'd say Umar. But if he's far away, I'd say Umar.
Yeah. I heard
Yeah.
that. I heard that.
Yeah.
Salmana.
Yeah.
So the qalqala, normally you don't have a qalqala on the noon, right? In Arabic. I hope talking to us isn't going to mash up your Taraweeh this year or
No.
something.
It's
For
alright.
emphasis, sometimes you need to do some rhyming as well. Roti, shoti.
Roti.
Yeah.
Boti, khoti.
Yeah.
Maybe
If
that's
someone
a
is
good one.
maybe in the gym, he's saying he's getting fit. Fit wit.
Fit fart.
Yeah,
Fit
fart.
fart.
That's the one.
Fit fart.
Yeah. Like Cockney rhyming slang as well.
Yeah. Ustad Asif's got a few of these ones that perhaps we can't share on this podcast.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Sensitive ones, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so if someone's like into banking or something.
Yeah.
Banking, shanking. What other things?
That's right.
I'm gonna have to share with my wife.
Thank you.
Right, we have Ustad Yahya.
MashaAllah.
Sheikh, I don't actually know your surname.
Muhammad Yahya.
Muhammad Yahya.
So Yahya is my surname.
Oh, okay. MashaAllah.
Just Muhammad, Sheikh Muhammad.
Muhammad Yahya.
Muhammadul.
No.
Are you Bengali?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Balasoni.
Alhamdulillah.
I mean,
I thought
forgot to say welcome.
Road.
Huh?
They're not
Balasoni. They're not Sony mics.
MashaAllah.
Ustad Yahya is an imam and our Qur'an teacher as well in the office, and he's known by a lot of people in the community. We thought we'd get him for this special edition of the Unscripted podcast because recently Ustad Yahya has completed his
Qira'at al-Ashar.
Qira'at al-Ashar, mashallah. The 10 different modes of recitation in the Quran, mashallah.
What are the 10 modes?
10 Qira'at.
The
10
10
Qira'at,
Yeah.
yes.
You want me to give the names?
Give the names so educate.
It's not a test or anything.
Okay,
So
no.
we can kind of start again if you
No.
if you get it wrong. No pressure.
It's fine. So the first qira'ah is Nafi'. From Qira'at Nafi', you got two narrations, Qalun and Warsh. Then you got Asim. From Asim, you got Shu'ba and Hafs. Then you got Kisa'i. From Kisa'i, you got Duri al-Kisa'i, and you got Abu al-Harith. And then you got Hamza. From Hamza, you got Khalaf and Khallad. Then you have Ibn Kathir al-Makki. From Ibn Kathir, you got two riwayah, Bazzi and Qunbul. Then you got Ibn Amir al-Shami. You got Ibn Dhakwan wa Hisham. So these are the 7 qira'at, and then you got 3 more You got Abu Ja'far. From Abu Ja'far, you got Riwayat Ibn Jammaz and Ibn Wardan. And then you got Ya'qub al-Hadrami, Rawh and Ruwais. And then finally you have Khalaf al-Ashir. You got two more from Khalaf al-Ashir, Idris and Ishaq.
Wow.
So these are the 20 riwayah with 10 qira'at.
SubhanAllah.
And where does riwayah Punjabi fit in?
Riwayah.
It's Punjabi. I think.
MashaAllah. So which is the most, the one that most people will hear in the various masajid in terms of the recitation?
Well, like currently, not only in the UK but around the globe, most people are familiar to Hafs and Asim. Although in certain countries, like for example in Somal, people recite in Duri, Abi Amr. Also certain, for example in Morocco, people recite in Warsh. In Algeria, in Warsh. In Libya, I heard people recite in Qalun.
Yeah.
But still, majority of the Ummah is united upon
And
Hafs.
Warsh and Qalun were both from Nafi'.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. Alhamdulillah.
Why is it that Hafs and Asim is the most common, do you think?
Yeah.
Why is
Why
it
is-
because of Ottoman Empire or something? Or
You can
Okay,
say
no
that also there was a point where, for example, in Mecca, Ibn Kathir is from Mecca. Okay, for example, Imam Nafi', he was from Medina originally. Okay, so back in the days in Mecca, even in the normal salawat, in Taraweeh prayers, you know, people, the A'imma, they will recite in the Qira'ah of Ibn Kathir. But Asim, Allahu A'lam, what's the reason why Hafs became more famous? But
Any particular of the recitations favored by any of the schools of thought?
not that I know of. But sometimes when it comes to fiqh rulings, I found that, for example, certain madhahib, because they will take certain qira'ah, for example, in Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْمَحِيضِ قُلْ هُوَ أَذًى فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاءَ فِي الْمَحِيضِ وَلَا تَقْرَبُوهُنَّ حَتَّى يَطْهَرْنَ. So these masail fiqhiyya, some of the fuqaha, depending on which qira'ah they take, so based on the qira'ah that they take, their ahkam will be based on that basically.
yeah.
Okay, alhamdulillah.
Okay.
I was going to ask, is there any ayah that you may not know this, but off the top of your head, but are there any specific ayah which differs the most in terms of across all the different recitations?
Wallahi, there are a few ayahs in the Qur'an. At the moment, I won't be able to recall it from the top of my head. But
If it comes to you whilst
Yeah.
you're doing this thing, it'll just be good for listeners maybe to try and see an ayah recited in the different styles and how it differs,
yes,
just for them to pick up
So
on it.
inshallah.
did you like, if somebody is learning all 10 qira'at, do they like, is it like, I'm assuming it's not as difficult as memorizing the Quran all over again, is it?
No, pardon me. No, it's not. It's not difficult. But for you to study qira'at and for you to have a really good understanding of ilm al-qira'at, then you need to have a very strong foundation in the Arabic language as well. And this is where a lot of people, unfortunately, people like ilm al-qira'at. Okay, well obviously it's the kalam of Allah. Okay, it is the recitation of the Qur'an. But at the same time, Arabic language is required as well if you want to have a really better understanding of the ilm al-qira'at, because qira'at is linked with the Arabic language. It is just lahajat. You know, how, for example, Allah says, Malik yawmiddin. Malik yawmiddin. When the Quran was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ at the time, some of the Arabs, they recited Malik yawmiddin, some others recited Malik yawmiddin. Okay? Even in the word sirata, some said sirata, some Arabs recited sirata. Some Arabs, they recited alayhim, some Arabs recited alayhum. Okay? Even, for example, there is something called ishmam. Okay? So, for example, the word sirata. So, a lot of Arabs, they couldn't pronounce the sad properly. So, the Quran came down zirata.
Ah, subhanAllah.
Yeah.
So the Prophet ﷺ recited in all of these different places.
Of course. This is why these 10 qira'at are mutawatira.
Yeah.
Okay? These 10 qira'at are
They
mutawatira.
reached us by mass transmission.
Yes.
Multiple
Yes.
to multiple.
From the Prophet ﷺ.
Yes.
You know,
go on, Salman.
SubhanAllah, like I remember I was reciting to Sheikh Tamir, I think,
MashaAllah.
and I'm not Hafid or anything, I was just like, I'm reciting to him.
Alhamdulillah.
But it was
Five
Surah
slaps later.
Mutaffifin,
Okay, yeah.
And I don't use the word like mind-blowing often, right? But when he corrected me, gave me an appreciation of how strict they are with regards to the recitation, the preservation of the Qur'an. So I said, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ألا يظن, I said, ألا يظن أولئك, right? He said, no, that's wrong. He said, ألا يظن. It's supposed to be ألا يظن. Yeah, the sound didn't even change, but he said you have to basically have a smile on your face when you do the noon part. So it should be ألا يظن instead of ألا يظن. So someone hearing now without watching the video, they're going to think it sounds exactly the same. But even your mouth expressions, subhanAllah, it's preserved in the strictness with how you. So the thing with the preservation of the Qur'an, it's so mind-blowing that it's like a nexus between so many different fields.
Yes.
It's the actual skill and the memorization and the ability to articulate things on one hand, but it's also a very strict intellectual, like a even stricter version of hadith criticism, science behind it in terms of scrutinizing transmission reports and narrations and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And subhanAllah, I remember one sheikh on TV, I heard him saying, he said, he's like an old school, sheikh, and he goes, we don't check our recitation based on the mushaf, like to correct our recitation. We use what we memorize to identify printing errors in the mushaf.
SubhanAllah.
I was like, but this is there's something that beyond the human. It's supernatural, right? It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is preserving this book in the different recitations. So because the human beings, they can make so many errors in, kind of like Chinese whispers.
And this is why the term hafiz is used, isn't it?
Yes.
How do you understand the term hafiz?
Obviously, a hafiz al-Qur'an is referred to a person who memorized the Qur'an. Hifz, hafiza, yahfazu, literally it means to preserve something. And Allah says in the Qur'an, "Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikr wa inna lahu lahafidhun." And the dhikr here is referred to as the Qur'an, that we have revealed or sent this Qur'an to you, O Muhammad, and it is our responsibility, wa inna lahu lahafidhun, to preserve it, to take care of it.
And it's more than just memorizing it.
Of course.
The concept of preservation and protection, and you look through the time, how in all its various forms around the world as it's spread in the globe, subhanAllah, that it's built to this day in that oral tradition first and foremost, mashallah. I was going to ask actually a question for yourself, because we spoke about the 10 modes of recitation earlier. Do you have a particular favorite?
I do have few qira'at which I really enjoy. First, obviously, is Hafs, because Hafs is the riwayah that I memorized the Qur'an, and is the first riwayah that I was, you can say, formally introduced to. And then I like Warsh.
Warsh.
Yeah, because Warsh was the first riwayah after Hafs I discovered, subhanallah. And if you allow me, I will say a story, inshallah, how I was introduced to Qira'at. There was a sheikh who used to come to Eastern Mosque by the name of Sheikh Ahmed Amir, rahimahullah. He passed away only a few years ago. He was very old. So initially he used to come to the London Central Mosque, which is known as Regent's Park Mosque, I believe.
Yeah.
He used to come there, and he led Taraweeh for many years. That was going back in the 80s, I believe. And then from the 90s, I think Isuna Mosque, mashallah, they managed to get a hold of him, and he led Taraweeh maybe for 15 plus years. So going back in 2003, I purchased a cassette. Back in the days, we had cassette, or I think it was a CD. They recorded the Sheikh's recitation from his tahajjud recordings, and also in Egypt they have something called qira'ah mujawwada. I'm sure you brothers are aware of it.
Is that where it's slow?
Yeah, the very slow recitation. And wallahi, it amazes me. In Egypt, they have this tradition where they actually will gather just to listen to Qur'an. Just the way, we go to talks or lectures or conferences to listen to different speakers. But in Egypt, they will go to places just to listen to Qur'an for 40 minutes, for an hour. Sometimes it can go up to 2 hours.
I wish we did that here,
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
We have to say this in the UK generally, we don't have that type of tradition.
It's usually when somebody comes and then
That's
after
when-
Salah they give him like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
he,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. So
No,
I was going
no,
to say
no.
one thing that I was really impressed about in Turkey after Salah, the
Oh,
Imam
yeah.
recites the
Mashallah.
Quran. Alhamdulillah.
Mashallah.
It's just nice because at that moment, you finished everything and you're just listening to the words of Allah
Yes.
Azza wa Jal.
Yes.
And we don't really have that here, in that
Even
way.
in the Haramain, I heard going back 30, 40 years ago, they used to invite reciters from around the world. I believe even Shaykh Abdul Basit, the famous reciter, Sheikh Muhammad Khalil al-Husari, all of them, they were invited to Makkah al-Mukarram to recite in Masjid al-Haram. If I'm correct, the first time when they introduced the mic system in Masjid al-Haram, they sent a special invitation from the royal family to Sheikh Muhammad Khalil al-Husari. Also, they sent a private jet for him to come from Egypt to Saudi to recite, to test the mics. So he was the first person to recite in the mics of Makkah al-Mukarramah.
You were saying you had got the cassette?
Yeah, so the Sheikh was reciting the last 3 ayat of Al-Baqarah. Lillahi ma fi samawati wa ma fil ard. And he recited Surah Al-Duha and few other Qisar al-Suwar. So he was reciting in Warsh. So when he said Lillahi ma fi samawati wa ma fi ard, okay, I was like, okay, no problem. It didn't catch my attention. When he started reciting Amana al-Rasul, because in Warsh, in Madd Badal, you can do Qasr, which is 2 harakat, you can do 4 harakat, and you can do 6. So when he said Amana al-Rasul, I was thinking, wow, I've never heard anyone doing Amana al-Rasul this long, So immediately, the following week,
Did you think it was a mistake?
No, I knew it couldn't be a mistake, but I was very fascinated, I've never heard anyone reciting Qur'an like this. And I didn't know what is Qira'at. So I went to my teacher, the one, may Allah preserve him, he's still alive. I went to my teacher, Ustad Abdul Wahid, and I said to him, I was listening to a reciter, and he recited Amana Rasul like this. And he was not aware of, all these different qira'at, but he knew there's something called qira'at. So he said to me, it's a different qira'ah. So since then, I was interested in qira'ah, and I always wanted to travel to Egypt to study the qira'at.
Yeah, there's something special about Egypt,
Yes,
isn't it?
Subhanallah.
I heard a phrase in the Quran,
أنزل في مكة.
أنزل في مكة أو مدينة.
قرئ في مصر. Recited in Egypt.
and حفظ في المغرب.
Some say Pakistan as well.
I think whoever the background is of the person saying it, he just adds his country to it.
Maryam Sharif. Yeah, mashallah.
So there's a lot of reciters in Egypt. Like, that reminds me, I've got this new little toy here, a little gizmo, and I'm gonna get you to guess the reciter. I hope I do this correctly and don't do the wrong.
Order.
Wrong one. I think it's this one. Okay, who is this?
None other than Sheikh Muhammad Siddiq al-Minshawi.
Subhanallah. He's one of my favorite reciters as well.
Rahimahullah.
Rahimahullah. You like listening to her?
Of course.
Listening to him?
Of course.
Did you try to recite like him? Everyone does this. When they first start reciting Quran, they normally follow a reciter that they like. Who was your favorite when you started?
Well, I had few.
Yeah.
I used to listen to Sheikh Hudayfi
Okay.
from Medina. Also, I used to listen to Sheikh Shuraim from Makkah. Until now, sometimes I like listening to him. Sa'ad al-Ghamidi.
Is it just a personal preference, or is there something about Sheikh Minshawi?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like,
Sheikh Minshawi, I fell in love with his recitation when I was in Egypt.
Yeah.
Although
Is that because you hear it a lot in
I-
there or?
yeah, because when I was there, everybody was talking about him. You
Yeah.
know, all our teachers, even the brothers that were there, everyone used to talk about him. And you know,
I had a really amazing, funny story about him.
Uh-huh.
That you know, in Egypt, Jama'a
Abdul
al-Takfir,
Nasir.
no, Jama'a al-Takfir wal-Hijra.
Okay.
The Takfiri group basically in Egypt.
Uh-huh.
One Ustad was telling me, he said they made takfir on all of the Qur'an in
Except
Egypt. Yeah, except him.
Subhanallah.
They were like, there's no way Allah will give a disbeliever that kind of voice and
Subhanallah.
ability with his Qur'an. So that's the next level kind of accolade,
Yeah.
that, you know, this guy was the only one that they
Subhanallah.
didn't make takfir of, subhanallah.
Mashallah.
Even they.
It
they
is,
didn't
you know,
hate it.
there's something very otherworldly about Sheikh
Subhanallah.
Minshawi when he starts reciting. Rahimahullah.
You know, rahimahullah, the thing about Sheikh Muhammad Siddiq al-Minshawi's recitation, you get so many Qur'an, and wallahi, everyone who recites the Qur'an, the Book of Allah, they deserve respect and they deserve honor. And it is not possible for a person to recite the Qur'an in with such beautiful ahkam of tajweed and beautiful voice, if it wasn't for the sake of Allah, if Allah Azza wa Jal didn't choose these people to recite the Qur'an. But then you have other reciters like the likes of Sheikh Siddiq al-Minshawi, you know. And if you actually look into his life and if you listen to analyze his recitation, you'll come to realize that Sheikh Siddiq al-Minshawi, he was accepted in not only amongst the normal people, even amongst the ulama, you know. And when you come across the circle of ulama, you know, if you speak to any scholar, he will tell you and he will praise you, Sheikh Siddiq al-Minshawi's recitation, you know, and that says something. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So even
And in his lifetime, he wasn't like, was he that famous during his life, or
Allahu A'lam.
like?
I'm sure he
I
was
heard that
famous.
he was very humble and didn't want to,
Of course.
you know, go
Yeah.
on radio and that kind of stuff.
Yes. He refused to go to Ida'at al-Quran al-Misriya,
The radio station.
yeah, the famous radio station in, in fact, in Ida'at al-Quran, in the one in Cairo, anyone who wants to recite there, it's a very, very big position, you know, if you know what I mean. So, for example, there's so many Qur'a in Egypt, their dream is to one day become a reciter in the radio. You know, they want people to listen to the recitation through the radio. But for you to be accepted to be a Qari in Ida'at al-Quran, you have to go through a number of tests. And those people who test you, they are ulama of Qira'at. You know, so when Sheikh Muhammad Siddiq al-Minshawi, when they tested him, you know, the lajna, the people, the committee of Qur'an who decide, okay, if this person is okay to recite in Ida'at al-Quran, they said, it is a aib for us. It is not right for us to be testing someone like Sheikh Muhammad Siddiq al-Minshawi. They said, they refused. They said, مثل هذا الرجل لا يمتحن. They said, impossible for us to test him. Khalas, you know, let the man recite. Give him his position.
You know, I have a question. I heard a few different answers, but why did the Qur'an they put their hand here? Or,
So holding it in front of their mouth, you're
Yeah.
saying, yeah.
is it
those
because
are-
they want to hear like their own voice reverberating into their
Allahu
ear,
A'lam.
or it looks like sometimes they're like holding their head.
Yeah, some Qurra, they hold their head. I think, especially in Mujawad, I think it gives, I don't know, Allahu A'lam, maybe it gives them
You
extra.
never done it?
I'm not into Mujawad, so
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't know.
SubhanAllah. I have a personal thing, like when I try to recall something from the Quran, I don't know if this is a common thing or I'm a bit weird, but I can't recall it unless I do it in tune. Is that like a normal thing, or unless something like really well, like Fatiha or something? But normally, like maybe another surah, if I think about an ayah in the middle of it, I can't
Yeah.
get the next one unless I start to recite it
the tune.
as I was as originally the tune
Memorized
I originally
it.
learned
Yeah.
Is that normal or?
I mean, I guess it's different from one person to another person.
But that's basically a nice way of saying you're abnormal.
No. Wallahi, it's
He's gonna hold his hand. Gonna hold his hand over your mouth.
But I do really like the style, not style, but like the tune. I don't know if it's appropriate to say tune. They call it maqam, right?
yes,
The
maqamat.
scale or the kind of the tune that they recite in some West African countries.
Okay.
They have like a pentatonic scale.
Wow.
Yeah.
Normally, in their kind of cultural,
Yep.
you know,
Mashallah.
they're singing. Normally, they have that scale, and you hear like you can tell if someone from maybe West Africa, Senegal, that kind of area,
Mashallah.
when they
Even
recite
East
the
Africa.
Quran.
Even East Africa, the sort of imams from Somalia, for example, Sudan, they've got quite a distinct style.
Yeah, mashallah.
And then the general, you find that in the other sort of stuff. that
Like
they
for
produce.
example, they'll say like, if I try and do it, I'm gonna butcher it probably, but be like. So like someone like Minshawi, I hear him in Egyptian style. They'll be like, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, like that, yeah. But in the kind of West African scale, it'd be like Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen,
Yeah.
Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin.
Mashallah.
You know that kind of.
Yeah.
It really sounds. I don't know. The
Mashallah.
words are the same. The ayat is the same. This kalam of Allah, but you can see maybe the history of the people in how they maybe the maqam they do it in.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know. Is it like a bit of a controversial issue with studying different maqamat?
Wallahi, maqamat. I usually don't talk about maqamat.
Why?
I get scared because I don't want no one to judge me.
Yeah.
Maqamat, some people, there's two extremes when it comes to maqamat. Some people say, oh, it's not allowed. Originally maqamat is musical tones.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's not more than embellishment.
Yeah. So, and then you have another extreme view where, there's so much into maqamat,
They use music as well. Like a
it
piano
defeats
or
the whole
whatever.
purpose of Qur'an.
Yeah.
Qur'an, the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَلَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يَتَغَنَّ بِالْقُرْآنِ. From this hadith we know that the one who does not recite the Qur'an, the one who does not beautify the Qur'an with his voice, he's not from us. Okay? It doesn't mean necessarily that you have to, that should be your main focus, because the Qur'an, we know كِتَابٌ أَنزَلْنَاهُ إِلَيْكَ مُبَارَكٌ لِيَدَّبَّرُوا آيَاتِهِ أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنِ. The Qur'an is here for a bigger purpose, and that is tadabbur, ta'ammul, practicing the Qur'an, understanding the Qur'an, but also at the same time beautifying one's recitation that is from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we know the famous story of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anhu, when he was reciting the Qur'an, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam praised him and he said, لَقَدْ أُوتِيتَ مِزْمَارًا مَزَامِيرِ آلِ دَاوُود. Because Dawood alayhi salam, when he used to recite the book, he used to recite it in a very, it was very
Beautiful.
nice, very nice tone. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you have been given a voice like Dawood, and then Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anhu said, Ya Rasulullah, if I knew that you were listening to my recitation, then I would have made more of an effort to beautify the Qur'an for you. So we know from some of these ahadith that it is very important that a person tries his best to beautify the recitation of the Qur'an with his voice. But I would want to say one thing here. Naturally, a person who recites with ahkam of tajweed, going back to what Dr. Salman said about the transmission of the Qur'an, Qur'an came through oral transmission, and the amazing thing about the Qur'an is Allah Azza wa Jal directly taught Jibreel You know, Jibreel came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he taught the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam the way Allah taught him. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he taught his Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, and that's how the Quran came to us, through oral transmission. Yeah. So this is why, you know, when it comes to tajweed, it is very important that a person who memorizes the Quran, or even a person who doesn't memorize the Quran, he should try his level best to recite the Quran the way, you know, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam recited. Do you understand what I'm saying? But this is what tajweed, linguistically, it means to beautify. At-tajweed comes from the word jawwada yujawwidu. It means to beautify something. So naturally, when you implement the ahkam of tajweed in your recitation, khalas, half the job is done. Maybe more than half the job is done. You know.
SubhanAllah. I had a question. You're imam in a mosque.
Yes.
Right. I'm not going to mention the name of the mosque in case Sheikh Murtaza Khan gets annoyed with us.
Now he's definitely going to be.
It's all our mosque, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hamara Mosque. Hamara Mosque.
It's Hamara Mosque. Hamara Masjid. Yeah.
Inshallah.
What's the weirdest thing that you've experienced as an imam? You must get like some crazy stuff happening, maybe. Or have you ever been like maybe leading Taraweeh and somebody just starts like
Freaking out.
shouting like there's a jinn in him or something?
Oh yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a few years ago. Actually, those two incidents that happened.
Okay.
The first incident was we were praying Maghrib, and in the first rak'ah, I can hear noise coming from the third or the fourth row.
And it wasn't your usual burps and stuff.
No.
Okay.
It was outside Ramadan. Otherwise, you can expect after iftar, the pakora and the samosas coming out. So I didn't really pay attention because obviously I'm leading the salah, and I didn't want to give unnecessary attention because then the people are behind me. Because imagine the imam, he's a bit acting funny, and the people might start thinking. So anyway, second rak'ah,
Did
I
it
knew
sound like
what
it was
it was.
getting closer?
Yeah, I knew what it was. So in the second rak'ah, maybe I shouldn't have recited Falaq al-Nas. I recited both of them, because in Rukia session they recite the Mu'awwadhatayn.
Yeah.
So I recited both of them. Allahu Akbar, Subhanallah. It's like
Somebody started flying.
unleashed.
Really?
It was like. And I was more worried about certain people, well, I don't want no one to create a big fuss
A
afterwards.
bit like what Mac unleashed earlier.
So anyway, we prayed Salah. By the time we finished the prayer, Alhamdulillah, the brother was fine,
But during the prayer,
You're talking about
he
the
was-
jinn or the
during the prayer, the jinn was reacting.
Wow.
Allahu Alam, maybe it was due to recitation, maybe due to I don't know what happened exactly.
Do you get called out to do some jinn busting?
A lot of people ask me, but I've never done Rukia.
Okay.
I've never done Rukia.
Have you
Is
been
there-
present during Rukia?
I have been present in 1 or 2 sessions while Rukia was being done on people. I was there. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
It's quite a common thing, isn't it? Like there's centers and
Yes.
it's
Yes.
like you can.
It seems to have increased. I think, generally in the last few years, I've seen a bit of a trend. Increasing cupping clinics.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah, hijama generally. And sort of Rukia.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's unregulated industry. Basically, note to enter, audio switched off.
Wicked sound effect, bro.
MashaAllah.
What did we miss?
I can't get this sound effect.
What did we miss? Ready. Okay, we're back. We were in the middle of a juicy jinn story that Ustad was telling us about when he was praying Maghrib,
Yes.
and some jinn started screaming or something in the back, and then the sound equipment just went off. Anyway, so you had a jinn in the mosque,
Yeah.
and we were talking about Rukia.
And
any
you've
funny
attended
stories.
some sessions.
Yeah. I've attended few
Question,
actually.
guys, yeah?
Huh?
So does that mean that someone here has got a jinn?
You lot didn't count that, man. Doesn't. Calm that a bit,
Bagsy not it. I don't think I have a
Ustad, do
jinn.
you find that
Yes, you
this
do. Be
jinn
quiet.
follows you to different places?
I mean, there is a lot of woods out there. Wallahi, you know,
There's something.
I feel
strange.
very hot sometimes in the night. So last night
Easy,
in the
bro.
room,
Oh, okay, that type of.
yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I left the window a bit open and I forgot to shut the curtains, and I was about to fall asleep. This is true, by the way. This is last night, literally last night, and I think I saw something walking past.
Come on, are you joking?
I couldn't make out what it was, but I was so tired, I couldn't get up to, close the curtains. So I decided to just play some Qur'an and turn the other way and face the other way and go to sleep. So
Then the jinn got the idea and he closed the curtain for you.
yeah.
He didn't start cupping you as well, did he?
Alhamdulillah, I'm
Oh,
fine.
Pajama.
I'm fine.
Pajama.
Pajama in his pajama.
Subhanallah.
No,
So you don't do ruqya, you said.
No, I don't
Is
do
there a
ruqya.
reason for that? Or?
It's just time consuming. It takes a lot of time. Plus, those who do ruqya, they'll be able to tell you that it's not possible to do anything else. you know.
yeah.
And also,
You
like
just paint a massive target on yourself.
yeah,
It takes a lot out of the person. It actually
Yeah,
really
yeah.
drains them.
Yeah.
You were saying,
And as you mentioned maybe about 5 minutes ago, this whole ruqya thing is at the moment
Unregulated.
unregulated,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of things. Like for example, something very funny my wife shared with me actually a couple of weeks ago. She was telling me she was following this sister on her Instagram page, and all of a sudden she sees 5-6 videos where the sister is doing ruqya on men, on brothers now. So she was asking me, like, she randomly messaged me. I'm at work. She goes, "Can a sister do ruqya on a brother?" Random from out of the blue. I'm like, "What are you gonna ask me that question for?" Lol. What happened? And then she goes, "Oh, I'll tell you when you come home." So she was showing me the video, and this sister, she's got a lot of followers.
How much does she charge?
Allahu a'lam. Allahu a'lam.
We need to do this for research purposes and make
Yeah.
sure we're not
yeah, let's
libeling
not do
anyone.
that. That's just conceptually.
Yeah,
So ruqya is an Islamic
yeah,
sort of solution to a problem.
yeah,
So the sister doing ruqya to men, and the people going to it's like seeking an Islamic solution in an un-Islamic way to a problem.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
Fundamentally, isn't it?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And even if you think about vice versa, yeah, how brothers do ruqya on sisters nowadays. There's so many stories, and I'm not talking about any brother. I'm talking about practicing brothers. Brothers who, mashallah, pray the salah in the masjid. You look at them and you think, mashallah, he looks like a wali from the awliya of Allah. But wallahi, recently I've been hearing so many stories, so many dodgy stories where Rakis are proposing to sisters, vulnerable sisters, where even I've heard a story where a brother knew this sister, not only she was going through jinn issues, but she was having marriage issues. So somehow he managed to convince her to request a khula from her husband. Well, in the end he ended up divorcing her, and then he married her straight away.
Do you think people should be exposed though? Because if they're not, then they can continue to harm
take
and
advantage.
abuse.
I think recently
It's like what Umar is always saying about entrepreneurs
Yeah,
scamming
honestly.
Muslims. This is kind of the,
Taking advantage. This thing, is subhanallah. It really gets me angry in that sense when you take advantage of someone, and there's different ways in which you can take advantage of someone. If they don't know about something, or you play on their emotions in this way, and this is cover it in a different podcast. But for example, someone selling investment products and saying to sisters, "Oh, you should do this because you need to be financially independent from your husband."
wow.
They just look at it in that specific issue. And what sort of messaging are you giving to that marriage?
Exactly.
And this is even worse. This is blatant, telling the sister to leave her husband for his own sake. Just
For
telling
his
her
own
to,
pleasure.
Exactly. To tell her to leave her husband That by itself is a big issue.
Of course.
But then to do it for your own sake and your own pleasure,
Especially when you know the sister is vulnerable.
Yeah.
of course.
You know, she's weak, you know, she's mentally not there. You know, her mental state is very weak, physically very weak, you know.
Emotional. Yeah,
Of course. Subhanallah. Recently, alhamdulillah, there is one Rukia center in Tower Hamlet. So what these brothers did was they invited the local scholars, and I believe some of the mashayikh, Sheikh Haytham, Sheikh Ashraf, and others, they attended. Some of the ai of Islam Mosque, they attended. And mashallah, what they're trying to do is they're trying to set a standard for all these Raqis and Rukia centers. Regulations.
Regulated,
Yeah.
accountable,
Mashallah.
sharing best practice,
Yes.
transparency.
Yeah. I personally thought that was a very good initiative, and it's about time where ulama, the scholars, they have to look into this.
Absolutely.
You know, wallahi, it's getting out of hand.
Because look, these people are vulnerable.
Yes.
And it's often they will go to the Iraqis from a position of desperation.
And some people just go to any kind of practicing looking person.
Yeah.
It's not that the person maybe is advertising it.
Yes.
A random person will come up to them because he's got a beard and a hat,
Yeah.
and he'll
Is this
either
all?
ask them, you know, can you know, my funny story, my cousin, she asked me, she maybe kind of tongue in cheek, she was like, give me something to read so I can lose weight.
Subhanallah. Allahu Akbar.
Firstly, I was like, why are you asking me? Secondly,
Here's my food. This will give you something that'll make us both lose weight.
give her a Pizza Hut menu. I said, okay, just recite every day. Recite Ayatul Kursi 100 times whilst jogging.
Wow. Subhanallah.
No, but it is there. And then the things they say, if it's first of all based, the thing is that the Iraqi themselves have to be based in using methods which are authentic.
Of course.
And even then, there needs to be regulation around that.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
But then secondly, there's those who do things outside of what's permissible, or even from an Islamic basis.
I think
Yes.
that maybe there's an argument here to kind of expose or kind of hunt these down. Maybe you know how like some people have these online pedophile hunters. Yeah? They pretend to be kids and like lure people, and they tell the police, and they go and catch them.
Pretend to be a
Maybe it
jinn.
could be a online.
Pretend to be a jinn.
Iraqi
Someone's going to
hunters.
pretend to be a jinn. I think that's why they lure them out.
They have dodgy online Iraqi hunters.
Yeah.
You can, that's a good idea. Could be something there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Future.
subhanallah. Yeah, I think we're moving the right way in terms of making it,
Yeah.
regulated. I remember, I'll just finish on this point actually. One brother said that when he was young, he went to Pakistan with his mum. He wasn't feeling well, so his mum took him to see one of these guys. And he goes, I was like a little kid. And his mum said, look, he's not feeling well. Can you do something for him? And he goes, I will never forget that guy. He looked nasty. he looked like he ain't washed
Alright,
in.
sure you want to finish the story.
He looked like he ain't washed in about 8 months. All right, and then he goes, he went,
Ganda Baba.
he spat in his hands, because then he wiped it over my face. He goes, I felt like throwing up because I didn't know what to do. I looked like my mum, and she goes, yeah, good, all right, you'll be all right now.
That'll be £5.
Subhanallah. Yeah, subhanallah.
On that bombshell, I think we're running out of time. So it's good talking to you, Sheikh
Barakallah
Muhammad Yahya. You can
Jazakallah.
find him in a masjid which we're not going to name. You'll also find let's just say Sheikh M. Khan.
Yeah.
It's his mosque. Actually, that might be a bit obvious. Sheikh Murtaza
Murtazak.
K.
Murtazak.
Let's go with that one. He's in his mosque.
Mashallah.
See you soon. Hope your Taraweeh preparation is going well, inshallah.
Jazakumullah
Have
khair.
a great Ramadan and
Barakallah feekum for inviting me.
Jazakumullah Shaykh Yahya. I think
Barakallah
that
feek.
was very informative, and it's really interesting to know your history and also the different recitations and how they come
Jazakumullah khair.
together. So I think from us, that's a wrap. What do you say,
Yeah.
Salman?
I've been your host, Salman Butt. This has been
Omar Suleiman.
Omar Suleiman. And until next time, if you like this podcast, give it a like and a share and a comment. Even if you don't like it, do the same.
Anyway.
And we'll see you soon, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Oh, wrong one. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's the one. Thank you.
MashaAllah.